This video is sponsored by Rewarded View. Are you tired of just scrolling through your phone without making any profit from it? Well, Rewarded View is for you. If you have an Android phone, then head over to rewarded-views.premier.ai, download the app, and start earning today. All you have to do is create your accounts, watch videos, and get paid for each and every video that you watch. So what are you waiting for today? Download Rewarded Views and earn the smart way. Hey guys, how you doing? How's your day going? I'm just starting. How's your night? Hope you are having an amazing and a beautiful day today. For those of you who don't know this, my name is Praise. I'm currently tuning into Data Decoded. So in the last video, we did an introduction to Python on just a few of the Python basics, and I told you guys that if you want a more detailed explanation, this one is just kind of like to jog your memory. If maybe you did Python once upon a time, but you haven't really touched it in a while, this to just trigger your memory. But if you are familiar with Python, you can easily skip this. We're not doing anything big or anything new. Same goes to for this video. This video is just to touch on some of the three basic concepts: control flows, functions, and models, to kind of like set you on the right path for when we're actually going to enter Python for machine learning, which is going to be our next video. So once again, if you are a little bit familiar with Python and your memory is already triggered, you can skip this video and go to the next. But if you are a complete beginner and you would actually need like a more detailed explanation, you can head over to my YouTube and get a full Python tutorial there. But without further ado, let's just jump right in. If you have any questions, this QR code for you to scan to submit your forms will be on the screen. If you feel like making a donation, the QR code for you to do that will also be on the screen. But yeah, let's jump into the video, shall we? So when you think of control flow, what comes to your mind? It's just the way you control the way things flow. Control flow enables you to give the computer a sense of dynamic. That's not a word. Just allows a computer or a program to kind of function in a dynamic manner. Allows it to carry out different actions depending on certain conditions. And there are two things that influence the way that control flow works. Okay, so there are two main ways control flow works. We have conditionals and we have loops. So starting with conditionals, think of conditionals as your normal day-to-day question. For example, let's say I want to go outside. I want to go to a particular place and I'm trying to pick out what dress I want to wear. I have a normal skimpy dress, no hands, very fitted, full coverage lacking. And then I have a more flowy, thicker material, probably longer sleeves, maybe comes with even some type of jacket or coat or something. And I'm thinking, what do I want to wear? Now, I can either decide to use weather as a condition, or I can decide to use the location, the event I'm going for as a condition. So let's use events. Let's say I'm going for a normal night out with my friends. It's nothing big, nothing fancy. We're just going out to just have a good time. And it's not going to be, if that is the case, if I'm going to hang out with my friends, put this on. Now, it could be that, okay, that is the only condition I want to work with. So I'm not going to be handling it's just one condition, just one question. I'm asking myself, are you going out with your friends? If it's yes, put this on. If it's no, don't do anything. That's the first type of condition. That is if statement. Then I can go a step further and say, if I am going out with my friends, I should put this on. Else, that is if I'm doing anything but going out with my friend, I should now put a certain other clothes on. That is the if else condition. Now the third one, this one is a bit more dynamic, if you may. I can say, if I'm going out with my friend, put this on. Else, if I'm going to maybe a formal event, maybe a church event even, put this on. Else, put this other clothes on. Now this else if statement can now contain so many other else if statements within it. So I can have, if putting on this dress, if I'm going here, put on this dress. Else, if I'm going to church, put on this dress. Else, if I'm going to swim, put on this dress. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on again. We're going to see code examples of that shortly. But another one, this one will not really touch on it. It's when we have nested if statement. It can be if I'm going out with my friends, pause. Now, if I now just state out the statement, I cannot within that put and that if else statement. I can say, I am going out with my friends, yes. But if maybe the weather is cold for this one else, you get so it's just the exact same thing, but now we're now nesting it within. I'm not really going to touch on that. I have so many videos on my YouTube channel. Go and check it for yourself. Don't be lazy. But let's just jump into conditional, shall we? So the first one here is the one I was just touching on, if statement. So the syntax is a very straightforward syntax. We have B here as a value, we have A as value. This B greater than A is a conditional. If you're not familiar with what they call it, operations, you can check. I have videos of that on my YouTube. But this the greater than operator, and we're saying if B is greater than A, don't forget your, is this a column or a semicolon? Don't forget that either way. Then here is now going to be the statement, the action that should be carried out if B is actually greater than A. Else, do this. Now, initially, the first one I was showing you, let me just comment this out so you guys remember how to comment. So, we'll just comment this out. So, the first one I was saying is that it's just going to be if B is greater than A. In this case, it's true. So, let's just run that and see, and it's going to print out B is greater than A. But let's come back here and make A greater than B. And now if you say if B is greater than A is not true, else is commented out. So ignore this section. So since B is not greater than A, nothing is going to happen because B is not greater than A. That's when we now have this else statement to now catch those like errors if B is actually not greater than A and want to like handle that and not just leave it as an empty stuff and now say it's not. Just giving an example. Then we have L if statement here. This is now saying the else if. So if B is greater than A, print B is greater than A, else we're now going to add more conditions and we can keep adding more things and more things and more things, but this is just keeping it simple. So if you're running, and we're going to see that. So it's very straightforward. Once again, if you want a more detailed tutorial, you know where to find it. Now, loops. Loop, I feel everyone knows what loops are. Loops are things that are continuously always recurring, always recurring, always recurring. Like a new day is always going to happen, a new hour is always going to come, a new second is always going to come. It's always, always, always going to happen. Now, let's take a darker example of a loop. Take a human being. From the day a human being is born, the human being ages every single hour, every single second, but now let's just say every single day. So you cannot have a condition that as long as so pause. So when you're working with loops, you must always have kind of like a break condition, especially when you're working with while loops. If it's for for loops, we're going to touch them shortly. For loops automatically have their breaks and like condition to like make sure you don't have an infinite loop because infinite loops is not good. You do not want an infinite loop. You don't want something that is always happening. Even in life, nothing actually always continues to occur. So when you're working with loops, especially while loops, you if you're working with while loops, you need to manually declare that break statement. I'm not talking about the main break command. I'm talking about like a statement to terminate, and let's say terminate the loop. We're going to that shortly, but here is like a real world example. When a human being is born, you expect that every single day the human being is going to age. Let's say every single year now the human being is going to age. So we're going to say this human is 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and on and on and on and on. And it's going to continue like that unless the human being dies. So death is the termination in the I don't know why I use that example. That was like the only thing that came to my mind. I'm very, very sorry, but it's true. Death is the terminate is the so let's say oh my god, I'm so sorry. Let's see an actual example here. So when you're working with while loops is the kind of loop you use when you want an action to continue to carry on like a human being to continue aging as long as a certain condition is true. Here we have I is equal to 1. And whilst I is less than 6, so that is giving it kind of like a control statement, something to ensure that it doesn't go on forever. So as long as I is less than 6, we're going to print I. Now this is an increment function. In Python, we don't really have, even if we're working things like C++, it's just I plus plus and it's going to increment it automatically. But in Python, we're going to do plus equal to 1. So I'll just say for whatever the current value of I is, add 1 to it. So that is ensuring that I is always going to increase because if you just leave I at 1, that is going to be an infinite loop. So we just say she enter and it's going to print it out. And once it reaches 6, it's going to terminate before you can even run it. But yeah, for loop just almost does the same thing, but this one, the conditions are kind of like predefined. You have to give it an array of characters, an array of tools, an an iterable, maybe a list, a string, just a range, even just a bunch of things that as long as those elements exist in this iterable, the loop is going to continue until you reach the last element in that iterable, or unless you manually terminate it by using either break or continue to skip it. Um, so you're just going to say for every element that exists in this list, print out that element. It's very, very straightforward. This is not a detailed tutorial on this. I'm just trying to jog your memory. I'm assuming you're already familiar with this. If you aren't, head over to my YouTube. I cannot say this enough. And finally, we're going to like a part I really like, functions. Think of functions as a fancy box that holds something you use multiple times. Let's say we're working on a program and there's this set of code. Maybe the code is like 30 lines long, and we're going to have to keep repeating this code in multiple places in our program. But if we keep copying and pasting or even manually typing words continuously, it's going to first of all make our code wouldn't be modular, it wouldn't be presentable, and it will be too bulky, occupying an excess amount of storage. To terminate this, we use something called functions, which are boxes that you get those 30 whatever lines of code, put them and enclose them in this function. And then in your program, wherever you need to access this function, all you have to do is just call the function name. So we're going to define a function here. We're going to say def. So when you want to define a function, you use the def keyword, that is def. So you say def, then the function name, parentheses, and the action you want the function to carry out. And now if we run it, nothing happens. Why? Because we have not called the function yet. So when you want to call a function, all you have to do is take the function name, kind of as if you are calling a variable. So what is it? Great. And you must add the parentheses. So if you don't add the parentheses, it's just going to kind of like print whatever this is, but you must add the parentheses. And when you add the parentheses and print it, it's not actually going to execute what the greet functions mean to do. Now, functions are a bit smarter. Functions can carry things called arguments. So these arguments are kind of like asking the users for variables so that they can execute that function. Take, for example, here, add. So we have add, so we know now we're supposed to call it, right? So let's just call the add function without passing any arguments. We're going to get an error. It's not showing us. Okay, good. We're going to get an error. So it's clear the error is going to say type error, missing two required positional arguments A and B. So the way we can pass this is now pass the manual values that we need. So we want A and want B. And we're just going to run it, and now it's going to fix that. There are more types of arguments that takes, like it can take args and quags. Args are arbitrary arguments when you want to like take a bunch of excess amount of like as much as the user wants to give, and it's just going to store it in a tuple. And there are quags which just takes a bunch of key value pairs and stores it in a dictionary. I have video where I think I explained it in detail on my YouTube. I'll check. If I don't, then if you guys want me to do so, I would. And lastly, we're going to touch on something called models. Models is still leeching off of functions, but models takes a step further where you have an external file. This external Python file has a bunch of other functions within it, and you can now reference from that module by importing that module and taking from the functions, accessing the functions that exist in our modules. There are multiple ways you can get modules. You can either use the built-in Python modules. You can either use those built-in ones. You don't need to import it. Just type it. Like print is a function which exists within Python. So we're not the one who wrote the argument for print. We just know we can use it when we want to. You can import from some of the ones that are on the Python. I don't know why I keep forgetting the PYPI Python package index. So you can go there and you can just think of it as Play Store for Python modules. You can go there and find, or you can manually create your own. This video is not helping you do that. This video is just to show you how to import, because we are going to have to import some things in the next video. But before we do that, so when you want to import, there are multiple ways you can import. You can either just say import math, and it's going to import the module. Then when you want to access for math, you're just going to call math dot the function you want to access. In this case, is sqrt, and you can use it. A second way you can do this is import math as something. Maybe assuming math was like very long, like one from model we're going to import shortly is the pyplot for matplotlib. That is matplotlib.pyplot. That is long. You don't want to be typing that continuously. So you can say import math as maybe empty. Try to make sure that what you're importing it as doesn't already exist in your code to avoid clashing. So if we do this and we run it, we are now going to have to now say math is going to be empty there. And that one we can now say from math. So this is usually what I do when I'm working, but I don't really use this when I'm working with a bulkier program, just when I'm working with like small compressed programs. So you can say from math, it's calling me. Okay, so from maths, like so that's so one main reason why is if you don't want to import every single thing. But another reason you could use is if let's say which person I'm going to show you now, if let's say I want to run it, I don't want to have to be using this empty or math dot the function. I just want to be calling the function as if the function exists in this print file. So I'll say from math import asterisk, that's just import every single function that exists in math. Then I can now clean this out and run it. Or if I want to import a specific function, I can just copy that function. Instead of putting asterisk, I will just have that function down. And yeah, so I can just be using commas if I want to have multiple functions. But yeah, that's everything. In the next one, we're going to be working with something called NumPy, that is numerical Python. So I finally entered Python for data science. So see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.